Welcome back to Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. I am, as always, Chat Show. How are you? And what's your problem? We're taking calls today at our 800 number with your problems. That's 1-800, leave me alone. Write to us, won't you, at kpcsfanmail@gmail.com. That's kpcsfanmail@gmail.com. I'm going to read two of your fan letters. Well, arguably letters from fans. Sammy and Jamie not here. Jamie is just landed in the Walt Disney World of Orlando. I know if you're a fan of this show, you know that is not a rare thing. But she sends her regards to you. No, you. And Sam Levine, there's no telling where Sam could be today. I'll ask him tomorrow when I see him where the hell he was today. I'm very excited about our guest. We've known each other a long time. We've talked about her being on the show, and then I am horrible. And she and and then we finally we made it happen, and I'm so damn pleased. So let's get your there's an update here. Those of you who give a good goddamn about the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, the show received 14 Emmy nominations. Somehow we won 3 technical over the weekend. And then the big pants presentation, who I'll ask our guest about. She's got one herself, and she's of course been to the show, which I've not been. So I'm curious as to what to expect. So congratulations to all the nominees in all the categories, and certainly the 3 wins that Maisel came up with over the weekend at the Technical Awards. Lastly, on the Maisel front, we're just finished shooting the Season 2 finale. I'm very excited. The Season 2 will drop before the end of the year is all I'm legally allowed to tell you. But write to me at kpcsfanmail@gmail.com, and I'll tell you the exact date, because there is one. 10 episodes coming at you. I'm just going to say before the holidays. Yeah, let's back it up. Okay, and now on to your alleged fan mail. Hey, Chat Show, this one begins. I'm fine, thank you for asking. I'm assuming you're well, but I don't really care. I'm on the road a lot with my job, and I've listened to every episode of the Chat Show, with my least favorite ones being where Sammy guest hosts. Well, I can't wait to share that with him. And then in parentheses, this person writes, I know, I'll go fuck myself. Out of parentheses. Thank you, sir, for providing insightful, thoughtful, provoking shows. I recommend them to all my friends, and the majority of them are only slightly deeper than a puddle and claim to not get the humor, so I quit talking to them. I don't need that kind of negativity in my life, but I've got a Larry King game for you. We've not had a Larry King game submission in a while. It is a tradition of the show that I've completely forgotten about, basically. So if you write in a Larry King game, I will send you a Kevin Pollak's Chat Show T-shirt. Is the threat. I don't know if it's true anymore. It really depends if I have your size. I'll just tell you that. There's a container in the garage, and if I still have your size. Today's winner is looks like could be Cody Sublet, because that's a name. Let's find out. A Larry King game. I had a dream last night that I was in a canoe on the Hudson. Fortunately, I woke up safe in the arms of Daniel Day-Lewis in full Mohican garb. Now to the phones. Wiener, Arkansas, go. And then this person writes, P.S. I spelt out Arkansas to keep you from mistaking the abbreviation as Arizona. Can't wait till you have Allison Janney on again. She's amazing. Well, I don't have her on today.
I'm no Allison Janney.
So, you, sir. What was it? I know. What did they say? What did he say to, who was it I know? That during was a vice presidential debate? I know so-and-so, and you, sir, are no. Write to us at kpcsfanmail@gmail.com and let us know the rest of that quote. So I think that last person was not Cody Sublet, but Cody Sublet wrote the next one. But the person who wrote that one, who is kind enough to tell me where I am and not, Write back and let me know your KPCS chat show a T-shirt size and shipping address. And again, if I have your size, you can have a shirt. And lastly, from, I believe, Cody Sublet. I love that name, Sublet. Just wanted to drop a note saying I recently discovered your podcast and YouTube channel, and I'm a huge fan. I watch an episode every day. Just listen to the Ask Kevin Anything show and hope you do more of those in the future. Thank you, and now I'll get out of your face. Lonnie Easterling, Memphis, Tennessee. So if I just kept reading, Devin, I would have seen there's a second name there. So Cody Sublet, send me your shirt size. And Lonnie Easterling, thank you for your lovely missive, and I will share that with Jamie, who was the co-host and questioner on the Ask Kevin Anything episode. Yeah, we will do another one of those where you the listeners, write in questions on Twitter and Instagram, and I answer them. Yeah, we'll do another one of those. But let's get to our guest, damn it. I've kept her waiting long enough.
I brought you some fan mail. I brought my own piece of fan mail
There's a fan mail. There's a fan mail here. Kevin, care of KPCS. So this will be interesting. I've not read a live fan mail on the show before. So it took 370 shows to get one of these. It's on my guest stationery, so that's already interesting. Dear Kevin, I'm just writing to ask you how you are. How are you? Love and kiss. That's XO, right, in singular?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeardley. Yeardley Smith, ladies and Jews, bring those paws together. Speaking of Jews, it's apparently a high holiday today.
Yes, what are you doing here?
And I'm such a horrible Jew. It's really my way to protest organized religion. Thank you for your question, Yeardley, and I am well.
I'm glad, because I listened to the episode with Colin Hanks.
Okay.
And you went on at some length about how are you.
Yes.
And that you were waiting for an answer, and that you wanted to know if anybody cared how you were and if they were asking. And so I thought I would write in.
Well done.
And, yeah.
Very well done.
Give you a chuckle, perhaps.
You took the time. I love the stationery.
Thank you.
I love personalized stationery and only recently re-upped my box.
It goes slowly nowadays with email.
It sure does.
But I have to say it never goes out of style.
No. How many options did you think you looked through before?
A lot, because I'm very persnickety about that stuff.
Because I love the sort of logo.
It was actually custom designed because I had a design from a previous set that I loved, but they discontinued it.
Oh.
Which I don't know why you ever do that.
Yeah,
why do you do that, people? So I had a graphic artist do something similar, and I really loved it. But it's printed, for those of you obviously can't see the stationery, it says Yeardley Smith, and it has, what do you call that?
Border of some kind?
Border around it.
There's a fancier name for that.
Yeah, and it's
very
red.
Intricate, yeah.
But the red isn't deep enough.
It's not a deep red.
No, and I wanted it to be a deeper, more sort of burgundy.
Well, I'm getting a burgundy from it, just so you know.
Burgundy adjacent.
It's got a nice nose.
Is what it is.
It's got a burgundy
burgundy nose.
Yeah.
Indeed.
First of all, I understand from the massive research that Yeardley Smith is technically half of your name.
That's true.
There are two names before it.
There are, but I've actually now legally dropped them.
Thank goodness, because I was not pleased at all with the four names.
Nor I. It was Martha Maria Yeardley Smith.
And what the hell?
My mother's name is Martha.
Correct.
She had an ancestor whose name was actually Mariah.
Ooh.
And she wanted Mariah, and they either spelled it wrong or my father said, no, that's not happening. And then Yeardley is my father's middle name.
That's such a great name.
It is a good one.
Yeah.
And you know, at the end, and when I was first born for the first, 3 or 4 weeks, probably why I have so many questions all the time, they called me Maria. And then my father decided, oh no, that's bullshit. We're going to call you Yeardley because that's a much better name. So then I became Yeardley, and I'm the first girl in my family to have Yeardley as a first name.
Yeah. Have you come in contact with, has anyone reached out to you saying, my name is Yeardley too?
No, but I recently went on Instagram to see if there were other Yardley Smiths.
And there
are like 6 or 7, and I can't glean if they're actually Yeardley Smith or if I don't. But oddly, the accounts aren't odes to me.
Not at all.
So, but it's such, and I can get behind Yeardley, Yardley. That's rather more common, although still quite uncommon. But my spelling, Yeardley, I never see it.
No, and it seems like it was designed so that you would have people mispronouncing it to your face.
For my entire life.
Your entire life.
And if I had had the wherewithal when I became a professional actor to drop that first E, fuck me, I would have done it. But I missed that boat, dude. I so missed it. And I regret it every day.
Yeah. But, when those sort of things happen, I always think, really, you think her name is Yeardley? Is that
or Yeardley? Does that have any sort of music to it?
These are not.
No.
Yeah, I've enjoyed Pollock over the years. Very much.
You have.
Yeah.
Jeff.
And also, I want to congratulate you to, is it the 3rd anniversary of the Small Town Dicks? Or?
We actually have only been on the airwaves for 1 year.
Okay.
But we have produced 2 seasons so far.
2 seasons.
You're so kind to mention it.
And that's right. It was the 1 year anniversary that I reached out to you about.
Yes.
August 31st, maybe?
Yes, yeah. It was Labor Day last year.
Right.
And but we have a massive fan base now. We're so excited. It's a true crime podcast where all of the cases are told by the detectives who investigated them.
Yes.
And me and my best friend Zibby Allen co-host along with 2 detectives, Dan and Dave. And we never say where the cases are. We change all the names. We really, really try to respect the victims. The podcast is called Small Town Dicks.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to. No, we actually are launching our 3rd season on Stitcher Premium on September 14th.
How exciting.
And everywhere else on September 21st. So, and we have some great stuff. We always file FOIAs to get assets like suspect interviews and 911 calls. And it's quite one of the best compliments we get. We have over 700 5-star reviews now.
That's
which is
extraordinary.
Amazing.
Yeah.
They really love how respectful we are toward the cases and the victims and how well produced it is. And we are a tiny team, so that's a big feather in our cap.
Yeah, you and your partner are basically producing it.
We produce it, and then Dan and Dave are instrumental in helping us secure the cases because they are detectives.
Sure.
So they sort of bring an authenticity to it that Zibby and I obviously lack.
But you represent, I think, the audience.
We do.
Yeah. So you're
we ask
asking
all the questions
that
you wish you could ask or had the guts to ask or an opportunity.
Right.
And so we have over like 1,400,000 downloads. It's pretty amazing since Zibby is our PR department and she tweets it and I retweet it, and that's our PR.
Yeah. So when would you say your fanship of all things small town murder and true crime began?
I think, for me, I think it really, I was such a good kid that I was a rule follower.
Right.
And I was always really fascinated by people who had the balls to not follow the rules. And, there are...
You mean criminals?
Well, there are variations of, I'm not going to drink the last gulp of milk, so I'm not the last one. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't have to buy the new jug.
Yes.
To, I'm going to break into your house and take all your stuff.
Yeah, it seems like there might be a chasm between those.
There's a chasm. That's sort of
between those.
Grand Canyon-y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one actually, the first one seems kind of lazy, just
You're
as
not
opposed
wrong.
to a rebel or criminal. Not as bad as knowing that it's gone sour and saying, "Smell this." That's another category.
See, that's another level.
It's a
another level.
Category, yeah.
And I've actually been asked this question recently, now, of course, because of the podcast. And I think and what I couldn't articulate when I was 6 or 7 is crime and the bad things that happen in life are all about a breach of trust.
Yeah.
And society can't function without trust. So you have to trust your parents that they will look after you and feed you and clothe you and shelter you and love you. And when those bonds get broken on any level, whether it's an employer, a friend, a stranger, then I think it really turns your world upside down.
Right.
And so you want those people who messed with the order of the world, which is trust, to be held accountable.
Yes.
That's what I think.
Very
and so
well articulated.
I really like the good guys to win and the bad guys to get theirs.
Right. Did you watch small town crime murder television shows?
No, not growing up. I watched a lot of I Dream of Jeannie and
Or
Shirley
recently,
Temple
like
movies.
in the last 10 years.
Oh yeah, I'm an absolute
So
addict.
what are your...
I love what do I love? All the shows on A&E. I really am fascinated. If you can get into the heart and mind of these really horrible criminals, I'm fascinated by that too, because I feel like one of the things I've learned, for instance, doing this podcast is particularly sex offenders, but often a lot of criminals who are quite adept, their ability to blend in
Yes.
is one of their enormous strengths.
It's a skill set.
It is enormous skill. So there, but for the grace of God, go all of us. That what is the thing that tipped you over the edge that
Right.
made you go, fuck it. I'm just gonna. I don't like you, and I don't know how to deal with adversity, and I'm gonna kill you. Like what?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it seems like, on the one hand, seems like a tremendous difference between having the idea of, I don't like you and I want to get rid of you, to actually doing that.
Yes.
And then sometimes it seems like not much difference at all when you hear these people talk about it.
Well, I think there was an article not too long ago about the Fortune 500, certainly at least 100 CEOs in the Fortune 500 had all the same traits as a sociopath.
Really?
Yeah, and we're starting to see that more and more.
Yes, we are.
as stories break on a daily basis about sociopathic behavior.
Yeah.
Which simply means, for me, detached from your victim, the same way that a doctor or surgeon must detach from a patient, not be emotionally involved, so that they can function at the highest of their ability. Right. I found myself about a year ago on stage as a stand-up asking the question, do serial killers worry about carbs?
That's such a good question.
Has a serial killer also moved on to almond milk?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Fair question. I feel like somebody like Ted Bundy, who prided himself on being
appearance.
Yes.
Yeah.
That he probably worried about carbs. I think almond milk was a little after his time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, I got hooked. I think City Confidential was the first.
Yes.
Right. Savannah was a sleepy town. People came and people went.
Oh, my God, that's so good.
The general store is where they got a tuna fish sandwich most days. All was peaceful and the neighbors looked out for each other. That is until July 29th, 1978. And then everything just went in the shitter.
Then it just goes in the shitter. Most recently, I was watching on the History Channel, they're breaking the code of the Zodiac Killer.
Finally.
Yes. And they actually, and then they they vet their findings with other super genius code breakers, this group of code breakers who come from all different fields, one from the NSA, one from, I think it's the USC School of Encryption, all these things. And then they send their findings to the FBI, but what's incredibly unsatisfying is you then don't find out what the fuck happened. Like the FBI is like, great, well, this looks legit, we're actually going to look at it, and that's it.
Until they bust something.
Yes.
Right.
And so, but
That's
they had
crazy.
two really strong suspects. And
From this new research.
Yes. And what was brilliant was, and made so much sense, so it's the Z340, which is the long letter, and 340 refers to 340 characters.
Well, yeah.
And at first they thought this guy was military, but then they thought, maybe not military, maybe just one who wanted to be in the military, right? And if you're not a professional code writer, but you're a wannabe, what are you going to do? You're going to do all kinds of things that a professional code writer would go like, that's too easy, I'm not doing that.
Right.
And that was how they broke the first half of the Z340.
Whoa.
And
Mistakes. Rookie mistakes.
yes, actually, where letters 13 of the letters in the alphabet represent those letters. So L is L, K is K, that sort of thing.
Right.
And then the second half of the letter, they say, is gibberish and or he's changed up his cryptograph. I mean, I love that stuff. I was just fascinated by it.
Yeah.
And the Golden State Killer, just,
Yes.
I mean, oh my God.
Yeah.
Who are you? And you live with family when they catch you. And you're gardening, and you have Facebook.
Yeah, right.
I mean, what?
Well, that's one of the things I enjoy much about Small Town Dicks, your podcast, is I've never been on Facebook. I know it's a thing.
Nor I.
How often the detectives are now using Facebook,
Yes.
which means the criminals are very comfortable having a life on Facebook.
Yes. It's astonishing to me, and they reveal so much.
Yeah, beyond breadcrumbs that we're familiar
Right?
with have been left behind.
Exactly.
You idiots. But I love which Dave and Dan.
Yes.
I can't remember which of them. Or
Dave does the Facebook stings.
Maybe they've both commented how we catch the dumb ones.
Yes.
First.
Dan,
Yeah.
I think, probably said that.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Yeah.
And so after years of Fascination,
Yeah.
and now Forensic Files is on Netflix with no commercial breaks, which is
Genius.
great, only
Yeah.
because Forensic Files was one of those shows, if you watch it on commercial television, in a half hour, there's probably 16 minutes of content.
100%.
And there's 14 minutes of
It was
commercial.
very thin.
Brutal.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
So even though the episodes are only 16 minutes long on Forensic Files.
At least you get the dump all at once.
Yeah, yeah. How does it then become an idea to do a podcast?
I just came out of a tipsy conversation, which I've now learned often podcasts do. People are like a little tipsy, like, we should have a podcast.
Yeah.
And
Well,
next thing you know,
yes.
there's a podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was vacationing with Zibby and her now husband and Dan. And Dan was telling us stories of his work. And Zibby, and we were all a little tipsy, and Zibby were like, this should be a podcast. And then literally 6 weeks later, we were like, okay, let's make it a podcast. And we had no idea, considering we wanted the stories to speak for themselves.
And come from the point of view of the
Yes.
detectives.
And that Zibby and I, some crime shows, it's more about the hosts, which is great, and some are about the cases, like Case File, for instance.
Sure.
That guy, he doesn't even put his name out there. You don't even know who he is.
See the Australian
yeah.
guy?
And when he does interviews, they never print his name.
He doesn't want to be known.
No.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fantastic.
It's fantastic.
You know.
I would just hate to be his agent.
Sure. Because it's hard to... How do you sell that guy?
I've got the Australian guy who does Case File. Oh, that's your guy?
That's
yeah,
your guy. Yeah. You can't see him. No photographs.
Right.
He's like Pynchon,
Sure.
Thomas Pynchon. So,
So your friend detective
yes.
is telling you stories.
Yes.
Case files.
Yeah.
And the idea is let's be the audience asking the questions.
Exactly.
Let's be the pedestrians asking, the civilians asking the questions. Yeah, that is one of the things that is so, I think, unique and wonderful about the show.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And then they've become, as I listen to all the episodes now, Dan and Dave slowly become a little more adept at speaking into a microphone, which
Yes,
is great.
I know.
Their evolution is wonderful. But also there are these guest detectives.
Yes.
A few of which have repeated.
Yep.
So that becomes like a larger family.
We do, and we get lots of terrific feedback from our fans who tell us, "Oh, we want more of Lieutenant Scott. We love his stuff.
Right.
He did the sociopath and the whistleblower in the first
yes,
season,
yes.
which is a great 4-part series."
I agree.
We have, Yeah, people have their favorites, but what's also interesting is, Dan and Dave often have maybe 1 or 2 episodes each per season. Each season has been about 14 episodes, but people attribute a great deal more of the content to them, which, I mean, it's great. It doesn't really matter where your appreciation lies, but I think they've come to symbolize this point of justice, right?
Right.
And that the good guys will win and we'll get them.
Yeah.
And people really are attached to them. One of the fans started a chat group. It has over 600 members. It's really, we're so pleased because you hope that maybe 60 people will listen and 2 of them will be your mom, right?
Yeah, you start out in a vacuum.
You do.
And you kind of stay in a vacuum.
Yes.
Until someone lets you know or you seek out the information yourself. Hey, you're this on iTunes.
Right.
Or that in reviews. Yeah, it is an interesting, and also if you're doing it for your own enjoyment.
Yes.
And your own fascination, that's definitely not only the best way to do it, but as a fan, it's the fun that's shining through.
I think so too. It's like if you like to cook and you make food for people and they go, oh my God, it's the best thing I ever ate, and it's not a complicated recipe, it's the love. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I grew up reading a lot of autobiographies. And
I love those.
Yeah, and of people I was fascinated by. And realizing that every story is a little bit of a snowflake in that all of our journeys, we may end up in similar situations through the auditioning phase as actors and having a production company. But the path, how the hell did you get from there to here, has always been my fascination, which is why I started this ridiculous thing.
I love that you do. And to your point, I feel like everybody has a story and everybody thinks their story isn't that interesting and every one of them is wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
That thing you take for granted is possibly the jewel in the crown.
Yeah, almost conservatively 73% of the people I've invited on the show who've agreed have said.
You've had everybody on the show, which I just have to say makes me, I was like, really, Kevin, you want me on? Like, you've had Ricky Gervais, you've had Allison Janney. I've worked with Allison Janney. Yeah. You've had like big people. Tony Shalhoub, I just was listening to his episode. So phenomenal. Great. Yeah. I'm like, what slow news day? What's happening here?
Well, it's good that your self-esteem is...
I know, as intact as ever.
Yeah. I mean, one could argue that you're part of a rarefied air that is like Mount Rushmore of just being gainfully employed for 30 years. Jamie and I just got our invites for the Simpsons season 30 premiere.
Yes.
So just as a working stiff... that alone, is... I'm
a unicorn.
Historical.
Yes, it's historical.
Yeah. So let's have a little self-esteem.
No, it's true. But I have to say I get asked to be on a lot of stuff, and it's always lovely, but I feel like this is my Tonight Show appearance.
Well, all right. Listen, we got a break right now. We'll be right back. Yeardley Smith. Now,
but I just want to say something about you on the marvelous Mrs. Maisel because you, as I was saying to you outside while we were waiting,
and I probably said something like that. I first heard Carson say, "Let's save it for the show," huh?
Yeah, you did, and so I have, and it's really worth repeating, I think, because one of the things that I love about that character you play is that he has a really sharp edge, sort of like Death by a Million paper cuts. This guy, or a rapier that's so sharp and fast that you find yourself disemboweled and you didn't even know it happened and you don't even know it hurts until you see your guts in your hands. You're like, oh shit. And then you realize, then the pain comes.
Yeah.
And I feel like...
He's the Hannibal Lecter of aging Jews.
He's just really, he's got a... There's a threatening quality to him, which I find fascinating.
Interesting. They write him very sharp and
they do
take no prisoners.
Which I love. Yeah. But I feel like at least
doesn't fight fair.
You haven't played a lot of characters who have been allowed to have a darkness like that.
Yeah, or a blowhard. I mean,
Yeah.
I started as a comedian, no formal training, not proud of it, just happens to be the fact. So I learned while I earned. And very early on, almost from the beginning, I set my sights on the underplay, throw it away.
Yeah,
Less
yeah.
is more. And I've basically made a career out of doing nothing. So I've never been the guy swinging for the fences.
Right.
And I've also, the way Amy Sherman Palladino and Dan Palladino write, my character, in fact, as Tony Shalhoub's character refers to him, is a blowhard. So when you look at a page from the script, I'm used to seeing my lines represented in a 1/4-inch size, and the star of the thing being a third of the page.
Right.
Paragraphs, and then now it's the opposite
Yeah.
it wasn't something I was prepared for through all these years of gainful employment. No real training to be that huge and that big, and so on those levels, it's been a remarkable and challenge, but also instantly rewarding.
Yes.
So
Bravo you.
So thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm channeling Lou Jacoby and Richard Kind, I think, probably in
No,
terms
you're
of
not.
yelling.
No.
But yeah, there's almost no way to fuck this one up. But thank you.
You're wrong about that too, but anywho.
Yeah.
Let's let that go.
So it's one thing from hearing those stories from Dan. And then what's the relationship to Dave? They're brothers?
They're twin brothers.
Twin
identical
brothers.
twin brothers.
Yeah.
Mirror twins.
So have they talked to you much about that? Because that's a...
Oh, yes. No, there is the you have my back in a way between the two of them that nobody else has.
Right.
No matter how good the working relationships are with the other detectives. Dan is actually retired now. And that was really hard for them, actually. When Dan retired, Dave was
Yeah, sure.
Who's going to have my back like my brother?
Right.
And they also, and they speak about this on the podcast, where they would debrief with each other. And, between them, because they'd both been there, because they both know what that world is like,
Right.
they're able to speak in a shorthand and to experiences that lay people don't have. So no matter how descriptive you are, I'll never know what that was like. I'll never know what it's like to leave my house and willfully go toward danger, not knowing what it is every single day.
Yeah.
I don't have that.
No, very few people
It's
do.
a very specific kind of personality, and they often actually refer to it as a calling.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think not unlike actors, although, what did you and Tony Shalhoub said something really funny. You said it's not important, but it's been on a long time. What did you say? Oh, my God. It was so funny. See, and now I've fucked that up. Now I've just blew it.
But that's pretty...
But as actors, what we do is not, it's not important, but it's, it's not like life-saving.
I don't think it's a noble profession.
Probably not, no.
And clearly we can't live without it.
But that's the thing. So to that, I think it has to be a calling as well, because it's so brutal and unforgiving
And then the giant difference would be we fall into the "hey, look at me" category, and they are the opposite of that.
100%. There are actually very few similarities, maybe just the part about the calling.
Yeah, it is. It is, in fact. It's purposely not shared, divulged what neck of the woods these cases come from.
Yes.
Or where Dan and Dave,
he's still a detective.
Still at it.
Yeah.
And probably calls Dan on occasion with...
All the time.
Yeah, to debrief anyways, even though Dan said, I've retired, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Dave just got promoted to sergeant, so we're very proud of him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and the best part about that, I think, is Dave was investigating sex crimes and child abuse for about 5 years. That is a really, really, an exceptionally brutal workload because when he seizes somebody's computer and they have, say, 100 files of child porn on their computer, he can't watch 5 of them and then generalize what the others are. He has to watch every single one.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how you can't unsee that.
That's it. You can't unsee it, and you have to compartmentalize it, and it's part of the job. But still, it seems like you would need your brain scrubbed.
Yes, yes. So the fact that he's a sergeant now, and he's now a sergeant of officers who are on patrol,
Right.
again, has taken him away from that day to day, at least.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
We're glad for him.
Yeah. And there must be a million stories in
A
there.
million.
Yeah.
You can't even, and our premise was, the reason we called it Small Town Dicks, Dicks obviously being an ode to the noir slang for detective. And originally I think we thought it would be a little more sort of jocular, a little more lighthearted, and then we realized these cases are really serious and devastating, but the title, we already had our title. Yes. So, oh well.
Yeah.
But the point of the whole thing was, big-time crime is happening in small-town USA with the same amount of depravity and brutality, just with less frequency. And I think people don't think that. I think they think like, oh, what'd you do? Like gas station robbery where,
Yeah.
No, we're talking, Dan investigated a murder of a guy who got stabbed 17 times with a sword.
With a sword.
Yes.
Which is...
Which is, unique unto itself.
You have
as
to
a
tip
weapon.
your hat to the commitment.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of taking the sword out.
Yes. I think the sword actually was on the wall. And,
sure.
Like a
Most
collector.
Swords start on
as
the
you
wall.
do.
Uh-huh.
And,
but just the length versus a knife.
well, exactly.
Just the to and fro of it all is exhausting just to think of it.
Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah. So now,
we have actually, I just want to say we have a great episode coming up for season 3 called Interstate, where so Dan and George, Detective George, who actually also just got promoted to sergeant, started off investigating this murder. And then Dave took over because the suspect had fled.
all of those are accepted. None of them are correct.
Driven. He actually just drove. He
Right.
didn't fly at all.
No. Nor did he flee.
He didn't. Back to his parents' house in another state, thousands of miles away. And so Dave, who was like, oh, I'm really familiar with that part of the country. So he was then assigned to take over to go get this guy and extradite him back to their homeland,
Sure.
to their department. And there's really, really funny story about extraditing a dude. He's like, they're on a commercial flight. And what do you do if he's in handcuffs wearing a
It's Midnight Run.
Yeah, bracelet, waist chain thing, all cuffed up, and he has to pee.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And the dude gets sick, like he gets the flu. It's a terrific episode. It has both the suspense and the heart, as well as a good dash of humor in it.
Yeah. Oh, I can't. I look for
Yeah.
it. And it drops September 14th.
Yes. And September 21st everywhere.
This airs after September 14th, so it's
excellent.
available right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Now,
What do you
because...
mean, it's not live?
well, no. Gosh, no.
Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was grateful. I also noticed on your podcast you don't swear much, and then I realized I cuss like a sailor, and so I was trying.
Oh, no.
Try to,
everyone's encouraged to
couch
swear.
it.
I try to get out a bunch of it in the opening so that the guest realizes that they can swear. But if you've listened or watched the show, you know.
You're quite decorous, I would say.
Yeah. But I will also say, because it's audio only, Small Town Dicks, your podcast, your true crime podcast, that people should all go to their various ways of getting podcasts right now. Well, the moment this is over. And download and listen to just one, and I promise you'll be hooked. Because it's just your audio voice, it takes a couple listenings to stop hearing Lisa.
I've heard that.
There's just no way around it.
Yeah, and people also are tickled to hear Lisa Simpson swear.
Swear and be fascinated by non-Lisa topic.
Yeah.
Which is a wonderful kind of subplot, but also silly fun bonus. And I would assume it's not a bad way to sort of bring people in initially, right? If a certain fan base.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure what the Venn diagram for The Simpsons and true crime is, but I think you found it.
That's so kind of you. I do think that there's some. So I'll do Lisa Simpson now because it seems mean not to. Let's see. Do we have something? Do we have something to read? Give me. This is how untalented
Of course I do.
am.
I have. You can read that
give me
funny.
your fan letter.
Yeah.
I'll read it as Lisa Simpson.
Oh, do the Larry King game as Lisa.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a dream last night that I was in a canoe on the Hudson. Fortunately, I woke up safe in the arms of Daniel Day-Lewis in full Mohican garb. Now to the phones. Wiener, Arkansas. Go!
Great. Yeah. See,
So,
folks, there's quite a bit of difference.
Yeah.
One's heightened.
Yes,
And
the
one
other
is
one
natural sounding.
Yes. What's funny is actually there was a guy who took me to task on Twitter who, when I did Raised by TV,
Yeah.
right? I was a guest on that, which was fun, and I did Lisa Simpson, and he said all I hear is that Lisa's voice is slightly higher than Yeardley's, and I said, oh, no, that's all you hear? And then I'm like, you don't hear when you hear Lisa Simpson, you don't think of the wit, the humor, the compassion, the defeat, the resilience, all of those great things that Lisa Simpson has come to symbolize.
Younger person, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And pretty much the answer was no.
Well, the laugh is also similar.
It is. So
You
that's
can't mask
my
that.
actual laugh,
Yeah.
and Lisa Simpson laughs like this.
That's right.
It's a little more cartoony, thank God.
Yeah.
But I do think
you're pressing on a pedal.
You
But
wish.
I'm telling you.
Don't you feel like when you fake laugh like that, it's such a great ab workout because
Yes.
you kick all the air out of your
Yeah.
solar plexus?
Yeah, I have people on occasion at a grocery store in line in front of me turn around and they claim they've recognized me from my voice. And so that blows my mind every time.
Yeah.
But I was thinking that's got to happen on a daily basis where someone.
It does happen. It happens
Yeah.
a lot on the phone because, again, you don't have the visual. But I've done so much press over the years for the show that I had the great good fortune to be on television quite a bit at the beginning of my career.
Oh, yeah.
A bunch of films and stuff.
Yeah.
Much less so now, not out of choice, but just because I don't get those jobs. But
You might have been afforded a chance to be a little more picky and choosy than your average.
I
bear.
will say,
Yeah.
people ask me what's the best thing about being on The Simpsons, and I always say freedom of choice.
Yeah.
It allows me to say yes or no as I please, and you cannot put a price on that.
No.
It is a tremendous luxury.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And but to your point, I think that people are sort of fascinated to hear. I sound so much like Lisa Simpson. What would she sound like in conversation?
Well, that's just it.
And
It's
so
a
they're
relaxed.
sort of, an oddball kind of first
Yeah.
you're a zoo animal, and then I think they really get into the show.
But it also sounds a little bit like Lisa Simpson did not grow up and be the president, but rather the host of Small Town Dick.
You've now disappointed.
Because it sounds
I feel
like a mature.
60 million people on Facebook who follow The Simpsons.
It sounds slightly more mature
Yes,
than preteen for 30 years.
8 years old.
Yep.
Yeah, and every time she has a birthday, she turns 8, and we just don't talk about that.
No, we don't. It's one of the absolute great things. I was curious in terms of that voice recognition and whatnot, or fanship, because every now and then there is a famous fan that I'll meet, someone who I greatly admire, and it makes no sense that they know I'm alive, let alone anything from my alleged body of work. So, have there been any strange, random, famous
Yes,
people fans?
Yes, I was. I was thrilled to meet Michael Kelly from House of Cards. I have a production and development company. We actually, because of that meeting, because I went charging up to him at an event 2.5 years ago, we ended up producing a film that he stars in called All Square. That's actually coming out on October 11th.
Amazing.
Which is fantastic. He's terrific in it. Pamela Adlon plays his love interest, although they don't really like each other that much.
Their characters.
Yeah.
They got along as actors.
Oh, yes, very much so, I think.
It's a drama or a comedy?
It's a comedy.
Great.
And Michael Kelly plays a down-and-out bookie who ends up betting on Little League games.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's great. It's really terrific. And he's fantastic in it. And he wanted to do something with comedy, right?
Yeah.
So my company and another company called Millhouse, just a coincidence.
Is it?
It is, actually.
That's unacceptable as an answer.
House.
It's 2 words.
Yeah.
But you would say everything's
you
coming
would.
up Millhouse when the production company does well.
I hope not. What happened to Paperclip? We'll call it Paper House.
Yeah. So the company's Paperclip, but...
Yeah. No, and the other production company is Millhouse.
I see.
Yes. And so because he was a huge Simpsons fan is how we got to make that movie.
Yeah.
I had a really dream come true moment when I met Helen Mirren and Judi Dench years ago at an awards ceremony in Britain for The Simpsons. It was like Britain's version of the People's Choice Awards.
Okay.
And we knew that The Simpsons movie had won, and they, for reasons unknown, said, Yeardley, you go and accept the award. So I did. And at the after party, I got to meet both of them, and they were actually fans of The Simpsons. I was like, I can't even believe you ever heard of the show.
Right.
It doesn't matter that it'd been in the world already and massively successful for 2 decades. You just feel like women like that our show isn't on your radar.
Yeah, they're Mount Rushmore.
Yes,
people.
Exactly.
The British version of Mount
Yes.
Rushmore. I'm not sure what that would be.
And I know, what would that be? Maybe something on the White Cliffs of Dover.
There
perhaps.
you go. But also The Simpsons, I think, I seem to recall, ginormous in the UK from The
Yes.
Gift.
And Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's part of the UK. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's huge there. And I will say, I guess broadly, The Simpsons is always a fantastic introduction. So if I was a big supporter of overturning Proposition 8 in California.
Right.
Which for people who don't know was we wanted to get gay marriage legalized back in the state. And Dustin Lance Black wrote I guess it's a play. It is a play. We did it as a reading, both in New York and LA, called 8. And it was about the process of overturning Prop 8. And in LA, George Clooney, Brad Pitt, all these fancy people were in the reading, and so was I. Mm-hmm. And again, I just couldn't believe that they even knew who I was.
Right.
But they did, and they welcomed me warmly, and that's
Sure.
my point.
Yes.
Because of The Simpsons, it is the best opener of doors you could ask for. People are always happy to see you, and not a lot of people can say that in life.
No, especially in the profession we call show.
Yes.
Do we have fans worldwide
Yes.
that look at a body of work of 30 years? You know, I joke in the stand-up. At some point I'll say, well, I've done a number of films now. I don't know the exact number, 91, but I will say that 6 of them are quite good. So most of us have a batting average that doesn't really live up to our years in the business. The consistency of 30 seasons is, it's unacceptable.
I'll tell them. I'll take that back
I'll tell
to
Jim
the writer's
Tuesday.
room. Yeah, when you play poker with our executive producer.
Yeah. So my better half, Jamie, is lifelong devoted, raised by the show.
I remember seeing a Christmas tree
Our
with
Christmas
all
tree.
Simpsons ornaments, which I didn't even know there were that many, so I was
Well, I'll tell you
mighty impressed.
why there are that many on our tree. It's just Simpsons ornaments, no other of any kind. So she shared with me this was a fantasy of hers, was to have a Christmas tree that was covered in Simpsons ornaments. And I discovered what it means to bid on eBay that day. Yeah, and a lot of them were like $1.79. I don't want to make it sound like I spent a lot of money, but I would not be denied. So if I had to spend $7.99, that's what happened.
Damn, you were doing it.
Yeah.
I
amassed easily 80 to 90.
That tree was covered.
Oh, it still is.
It wasn't like there were 7 of them.
Nope.
And the tree was
No, I went a little nutty.
It was.
You can't tell me what your dreams
It was
are.
legit.
and introduce me to something like eBay and don't expect me to lose my mind.
That's what's great about you.
Well, I'm thorough, if nothing else. Yeah. Did you ever retrace the steps in Paris, France of your birth? Have you
I have
done
been
that?
back.
I'm sure you've been back to Paris, France, but did you
No.
have any? Because I don't imagine you stayed there for much.
No, we didn't. We stayed there for the summer. My mother was
Just
summering.
happened to.
My father was a foreign correspondent for UPI, which
Right.
was United Press International, which doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. But it's like Associated Press.
Right.
And he was stationed in Poland and Russia. And at the time, my mother was pregnant with me and my older brother. I have a brother who's a year older than me. He was born in London. The Polish doctor said, "You don't speak the language very well. And if something goes wrong, we probably can't accommodate you as well as a Western country. So, got any ideas?"
Wow.
And I was born in the summer, and so she had an aunt and uncle summering in Paris. So she went, "All right, I'll fucking go to Paris." So I was born there.
Yeah.
And and then after that summer, we went back to Poland. And then I think shortly, about a year after that, we came to the States because my mother said, "I have 2 hands and 2 babies. I'm going back. Are you coming?"
Yeah.
And I think my father was really bummed. Like, this is I was born in 1964, right? So this is the height of the Cold War. Shit is going sideways. I
Yeah.
mean, there is so much intrigue.
Yeah.
And that was still a time when you would get the story and then you would run to the phone and, say, "This is a story I want to write." And then they would say, "Write it." And I guess you would write it. And
Yeah.
so my father,
But this is horrible news for him.
I think he was really not pleased.
But a tribute to his love
So-
for your mother.
Yes.
Certainly at the
Yes.
time. I don't know
Yes.
what happened afterwards.
Yeah, well, they didn't stay married, but they stayed married until I was 20. So
That's
it's a
respectful.
good long time. That's a good college try,
And
don't you think?
is the internet correct in that you were raised in our nation's capital?
I was.
And what was that like?
So
I only know the city from visiting and being a tourist.
I think it was a great mix of being a city and not as overwhelming as New York. My grandparents
yeah.
and both my parents were born and raised in New York, in Manhattan.
Wow.
And so we would go there all the time to see my mother's parents. And so I was quite familiar with it. And D.C. Was always regarded as the sort of the ugly suburb. You shouldn't really be the nation's capital, but I don't know how you got that title, but goddamn. And now I actually think it's quite different. I think it's quite a bit more hardened. But I used to take 3 city buses to school, right? It was just a different time.
It certainly was.
And there's a neighborhood full of kids, and we went there because my father applied to the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, San Francisco Chronicle, and the Washington Post. And the New York Times said no. My mother didn't want to move out west, and she didn't want to live in Illinois. So D.C. was where we ended up. And we moved there when I was about 3, I think. Prior to that, between Europe and D.C., we lived in New York with my mother's parents.
Right.
While my father took his time apparently looking for a job.
And do you have a favorite city now? As a person who's traveled the world?
That's such a good... I will say I love London.
Yeah.
I love that. I really I like New York. I guess the better answer is I've never found a place where I feel like I absolutely belong. And so when I know I don't want to die in Los Angeles. I have a
Because you don't
really-
want to die or you don't want to die here?
Well, both.
Sounds like you're saying both.
Both. And I've come to like LA.
You've lived here a very long
time. And I do consider it my home city now. And I have a deep life here. My infrastructure is deep and I live in a beautiful home. But there's something, I think it has more to do with my innate restlessness and less to do with the actual city itself. And so I've never found a city that made me feel like, here it is.
Yeah.
And that makes me sad.
Where's
yours?
Don't be sad.
Don't tell me what to do.
It's more of a request. Well, I'm from San Francisco. We almost grew up together. If your mom wouldn't have minded moving out west.
Indeed.
I mean, I'm considerably older, so
I
we
don't
wouldn't
believe
have gone
that.
to school together. Yeah. So being from San Francisco and San Jose, it's in my DNA to loathe Los Angeles, just from a
Sure.
kind of a sports
Absolutely.
foundation.
Well acquainted.
Yeah.
Zibby's from that part of the world, by the
Oh,
way.
yeah. Well, there you go.
My co-host.
And also, San Francisco is a city,
Yes.
whereas Los Angeles is a collection of suburbs.
You're right.
Yeah. Even with the new, after 50 years of threatening to have a downtown, they finally pulled it off.
Yeah.
And it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
It's still not the feeling of a city.
Because you still have pockets of downtown that you wouldn't wander into. But the arts district is fabulous.
Yeah.
But then to get to the next place, to say LA Live, maybe you'd want to Uber instead of hoof it.
That's right.
Just saying.
It's only 6 blocks, but we're not
But,
walking. What does that mean? Yeah. So what was weird for me was, as a stand-up comedian, there was so much work in San Francisco, I didn't really do the road that much until I was already at it, maybe 10 years. But I remember the first time I went to New York as a stand-up, probably 25, 26 years old. I started early, so by 2021, I was pretty far up the food chain
incredible.
in San Francisco. And then by 25, I'd sort of risen to the top of where I thought I would get,
Yeah.
and moved to LA around that time. But I went to New York at one point and felt when I got there was that sense of, ooh, this is where I belong. And then I realized there were 5 million people on the sidewalk between me and where I needed to be. And everyone lived in an apartment.
Yeah.
And being California born and raised, the outdoors was a little too important without having to commute to Connecticut. So I love to visit New York, and now, weirdly, couldn't fathom living there full time.
Yeah. I don't think I could either. DC, we lived in a row house, but we had a little garden front and back, right? Yeah. And there was a lot of green. What's funny is actually my mother says, because she was born and raised in Manhattan, that when they first moved to DC, one of the things that really bothered her was that it was so green.
Wow.
She was like, what's with all the trees, dude? Like, what up?
Also, way ahead of her time using dude.
Yes.
Technically. Speaking.
I wish she would use dude. I so wish.
Yeah. Have you done much writing? I feel like you have. Why do I feel that way?
Because I published a book in 2009. HarperCollins published it, actually.
Called
I, Lorelei. And it's a really quite wonderful book. I like to... It was beautifully reviewed. It was not...
a piece of fiction, a novel?
Yes. And it's about this 11-year-old girl named Lorelei, and she has a very funny kind of cockeyed view of the world. And what I was striving for was a book that would please parents who were reading it, sort of like The Simpsons, although I would never compare my work to that level of excellence. But The Simpsons works on many levels. It was never written for children, but it's a cartoon, so it appeals to children. But all the jokes and the syntax is all for grown-ups.
I feel that's Bugs Bunny.
So, exactly.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
So, I, Lorelei, I think what pleased and surprised reviewers was it worked on both those levels, that it appealed to an 11-year-old audience and it appealed to the grown-ups who were reading it and reviewing it.
Right.
Sadly, what I found out too late, because of course I'd never written a book before, was that when a publishing company releases books, they release, say, 10 at a time. But prior to that, they decide which ones they're going to put their PR muscle behind. And I, Lorelei, was not one of them.
Right.
It was sad. But I guess what I like about it is it's the book I wanted to write. It's the book I intended. I fought hard for the things I believed in. And I'd written it before I am.
Yeah.
I really, she's a great girl. The
Yeah.
same way Lisa Simpson is a great girl.
Right.
Yeah.
And imagine at the time, how old was I, Lorelei?
11.
11. So,
Yeah.
but still, there must have been some sort of parallels drawn by horrible interviewers, since you had written a book about a girl.
Yes, of course.
Is this your departure from Lisa? Is
Yes.
this what you wish Lisa was? And so on and so
Kevin,
forth.
it was all that.
Yeah.
And then how much of this is you? And, you can't work on something that long and that hard and
love
love it
writing
that much.
fiction.
Right.
Because you get to go
You get
into
to be a better
fantasy.
version of yourself.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
But of course, there's some of you in it.
Right.
Because you can't write it well if there isn't.
Right.
And I actually feel that way about acting too. I actually don't think every actor is great at everything, nor should you be.
Right.
And I think that that's okay. That, I have my strengths and there's certain things you would never ask me to do, and that's probably right. There are certain things I don't get asked to do that I would love to try.
Yeah.
But,
I can't cry on cue.
Sorry?
I can't cry on cue. There's a scene
No,
of me
it's super hard.
in the movie Avalon where it's at a funeral. The matriarch of the story, spoiler alert, has passed away. And we're all lined up, and the camera does a slow pan down everyone's face. And I am just a guy who looks like he's trying to cry, which is so sad for the character.
It's really hard.
Yeah, I'm empty inside as a human being, so I understood why I looked that way.
Yeah.
But the character
Maybe that was enough.
really did destroy.
I had to cry on cue in As Good as It Gets
Yes.
for that scene in the hospital.
Right.
We filmed that scene all day. No exaggeration. 14 hours of crying. And I had to do something. I'm a real people pleaser. Less so now as I get into my midlife, which is good. But it still lives in me. And so I'm not a person who, if I'm playing a bitch, can stay in character at lunchtime.
Right.
Like I want my crew to like me.
Good, yeah. But that's
So-
okay. Your cast needs to like you too, and
Yeah.
everyone around you.
Right? I sort of so I had to really tell everybody, please don't talk to me between scenes, and then I would have to sequester myself in my tiny little four-banger trailer, right? During lunch on that day so that I could stay in this place of virtual grief for
Right.
14 hours.
Yeah, and I finally, I've known James L. Brooks for a long time, but we hadn't worked together in any capacity until I finally did some voices on an episode of The Simpsons.
Yes.
And
Did he direct you?
he directed the episode. So there was a director already there. One of the writers was there in this recording space, and we'd all been niceties and hello, how are yous for a good 10, 15 minutes, and then Jim walked in, and I could tell by the look on the face of the woman who was there to direct the episode
Yes.
that this was a surprise to everyone.
I'm sure.
And then that's when I learned that he knows what he wants.
Yes.
And we're going to keep going until he
Gets it.
hears it and gets it. And while every director is kind of like that, you don't normally have the luxury of time to get anyone's idea of perfection.
Right.
And you'll hear an actress say, is there any way I could get another one? Because they're rarely pleased. So someone has to decide what perfect is.
Right.
And it does fall on the director to be that leader. And so I don't envy your 14 hours of crying.
You get to the point where, you know how when you're a kid you say a word over and over and over again and then it stops losing its meaning?
Sure.
I will say doing the exact same scene, which was only about 2 pages, if that, maybe a page and a half, that many times it doesn't, and then you just feel, I do remember feeling kind of broken inside, like, am I just really bad because you're not getting what you need?
Right.
You go to that place.
Yeah.
Because I will give you everything I have, but at a certain point, I will lose my way
Right.
and not have any sense of whether or not I'm nailing it.
So, yeah. Sometimes as a writer, I feel there's a musical rhythm to
Yes.
the dialogue. And unless those notes are played musically sound and perfect, it doesn't sound right. It doesn't feel right. And so I did relate to what pain I was causing Jim when I couldn't hit those notes correctly.
I also feel like he really is a genius. And
One of the few where that word applies.
I agree.
Oh, yeah.
But he also, my experience of him is that he sometimes, his brain goes so fast, it can be hard to, his mouth doesn't always catch up, so you get half thoughts sometimes.
Sure.
Right? So, and he's obviously not aware of it because he's already moved on to the next 9 things.
That's right.
And it has to be really frustrating for him, and it's devastating for us.
Yeah, there is a certain level of communication that's helpful
Indeed.
between a director and
I'm actually
and an
not
actor.
above asking somebody if, especially on The Simpsons or something, I want to hear the music you hear in your head, so
Yeah.
give me a line reading.
Right.
And then, because no harm, no foul. It'll
Right.
pass through my filter.
Yeah.
And then it'll come out the way I do it. But
Right.
now at least I can hear the rhythm and the music that you have,
Yeah.
and that will really help me.
Yeah.
I don't care about that. Like, yeah. People are like, how dare you give me a line reading? Fuck off. That's not my thing.
Yeah. I'm allegedly directing a film in January.
You are?
It came out in the so-called trades today.
Tell us. Can you?
Well, sure, but it's the third film I've directed. The first one was a documentary, just talking heads, so there was no script. The second one was someone else's script that I may or may not have done 6 rewrites on, but still, it was someone else's work. So there wasn't as specific as those musical notes that I needed to hear. So my favorite kind of direction to give on that movie, The Late Bloomer, still available on Netflix, was to go up to the actor or actress after a take and say, "That was great, really. Let me see what it feels like. 17% less." And then walk away. And then invariably they would laugh, depending on what the number was.
Because that's a horrible direction, Kevin.
Well, what I was trying to communicate was and I obviously was able to articulate it at some point. You've got this. You're doing it.
Right.
Let's try some variations.
Oh.
So do 11% more. So see what that feels like. Do
But
17%
more in what
less.
direction?
Well, yeah. So usually what would happen is I would say that, they would laugh, I would walk away, and they would do whatever they wanted to,
Oh, interesting.
whatever felt they wanted to try next. And I kind of stole that from
Hitchcock?
close, Martin Scorsese.
Oh,
so I
smell you, dude.
I know. I had a couple scenes in Casino, but I one of them is just me and Sir Robert De Niro sitting at this four-top table inside this
that like?
casino. Well, the most fascinating part was within the composition of Scorsese's frame of the shot, it was like there was a graph over it, and every square inch of the graph was perfection. The composition was very, very specific in perfection. But within that composition, the 2 actors were free to do whatever they wanted. So the direction from him after each take would be, what do you think? Is he less angry, more angry? What do you want to do? And that's really what it was. So the idea is to have a great script, be great at casting, so that you know you've got great actors who can do what they do.
Right.
And I do want their interpretation. So now this script I wrote and I'm allegedly directing in January is a twisting, turning, whodunit kind of thriller.
How fantastic.
And it's a contemporary set, but very sort of stylistic in a noir way. And there are very specific rhythms that have been in my head because I wrote this thing 16 years ago, and it's been financed and fallen apart 4 times.
Right.
So I actually don't believe it's going to happen until I'm at the premiere,
Sure.
even though it's in print today. But we were able to cast our lead actress. It's called Waiting for Helen, and we've cast our Helen.
Who's Helen?
Ana de Armas, this brilliant Cuban-born actress.
Wow.
If you saw Blade Runner 2049, she's the hologram
Oh,
love
yes.
interest to Ryan
Oh.
Gosling. She's a breathtaking talent, and so Waiting for Helen, we have our Helen, and so that what moves everything forward.
Yeah.
And
Will you be in it too?
no. When I wrote it, there's a detective sits down at a counter of a diner and tells a story to someone a couple stools over, and then we go into that story.
Can I be the person on the stool a couple of stools over?
Yes, you can. But I'm going to need 17 giant movie stars to say no first, according to my financiers.
Sure. No, I get it. Yeah. I get it.
We're doing that wonderful thing called playing the name game.
Yeah.
Because she's so spectacular. Now I have the freedom of the financiers saying, well, let's keep swinging for the fences. But when I wrote it, that character on the stool, like you and your co-host of Small Town Dicks, was the audience asking the questions.
Right.
So the detective's telling the story, and the guy on the stool or woman on the stool would ask, wait. Why didn't blank? Why didn't she say? And then you go back into the story kind of thing.
What a great device.
So I wrote it as kind of an everyman, right, who I've been portraying all these years. 16 years ago, it sounded, well, I've been with giant movie stars and they drive the financing of the movie. I'll be the putt sitting on the stool, listening to the story and asking questions. And then on that last movie, Late Bloomer, there was a similar role that the producers wanted me to do, and I cast J.K. Simmons within 6 months of him winning the Academy Award and all the other awards that one is available to one that year. And I realized, we can raise the level of everything if I hire a character actor like me, but wildly more famous. So that's what we'll be in the process of doing.
And Arts Out, I feel like, while we both have our really devoted fans, for which we're both extremely grateful, our actual business, show business, is never shy about letting you know that you're nobody.
Reminds you.
Yes, constantly, really.
And sometimes in the nicest way they can put it is, we're not saying you're nobody. We're saying you're not the somebody we need.
Yeah.
I remember hearing from the agent, if so-and-so passes, you're on the short list. Am I?
Oh.
Yeah. Why would so-and-so pass?
Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I loved the story, by the way, that you told about The Usual Suspects and how the director said, I want you, but I'm just going to read these two other actors because, I promised their agents. Yeah. And then you drove away and went, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I could get bucked out of this process. And
one of those actors comes in and
blows him away. Yeah. I'm not going to be on the hook anymore.
Right.
So you went back and read for it. Yeah. So smart.
I was in the offer only which is a term agents tell you exists.
Yeah,
and it means
I've never experienced
you've
that,
risen
really.
to a point where we're not going to let you go in an audition. Mm-hmm. And it happened after A Few Good Men. Yeah, I mean, I was the only person in that giant cast that the audience sort of got to discover.
Right.
And show business too. And show business decided, you're now going to get offers. And that's why I ended up doing 40 movies in the 90s. Again,
amazing.
6 of them quite good.
Listen,
I was a girl who couldn't say no. Let's be honest. But by the way, you come from stand-up comedy. When someone offers you a gig, the answer is always yes, because you need stage time to get better.
Right.
So when the offers started coming in, I still had the mentality of a comedian, which was, you're saying I can do this. You'd like me to do this.
That's fantastic.
Where do we go? How does that start?
Yeah.
But I also, there were certainly films that I ultimately said no to because I learned, you don't have to do everything, you idiot.
Right.
But so in 1994, when I met with Bryan Singer, yes, and he said, I want you to do this, and I have 2 other actors that I promised their agents I would see, and those moments come along, and that's why I was sort of celebrating the organic way that your podcast, Small Town Dicks, sort of grew from a conversation. But it's a tremendous amount of work.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
We are very, we have 2 editors. Zibby and I, Zibby does the first pass, the shaping pass. Then she passes it to the editors and they pass it to me. And I always refer to myself as the flea comb. I'm the fine tooth comb that sort of irons out the last of the sort of, and it's more than ums and things like that. It's really sometimes such sentence structure.
Right.
And we never change the story in our editing. The story is always exactly as they told it, but because our detectives aren't professional storytellers, sometimes they'll say, oh, I forgot to tell you something that really important that should go at the beginning
Right.
in order for the story to flow. And so that's why we're so edit heavy. But we also wanted it to sound like This American Life. So, oh God.
It's a tremendous amount of work.
That was a tall bar, a high bar.
Yeah. And when you're dropping in real sound bites from 911 to phone calls and the like, then it becomes a highly produced show, and it's a tremendous amount of work. And it also becomes careful what you wish.
Yes.
In terms of, we're going to do this, it's going to be fun, and now it's a full-time job.
And we still treat it like a part-time job.
Yeah.
Because everybody's still doing other things, you know. Ben, my business partner, always jokes that I have 9 jobs.
Yeah.
Because I actually have The Simpsons, still a job. And Small Town Dicks could be my other full-time job.
Right.
And then we have our production and development company, which is a whole other full-time job.
Oh, yeah.
So
Jamie and I have been to a couple table reads of The Simpsons, and I noticed that there's always at least 1 or 2 cast members that are on speakerphone.
yes.
But in terms of doing the job, you guys, did you ever gather?
Oh, we still do. We do it.
For a recording?
Yeah. We do it all together like an old radio play.
You do?
Yeah.
Because...
So Hank lives in New York, so
right.
he never records with us, obviously.
Right. Harry's New Orleans often.
He's often in New Orleans or London. His wife is British.
Right.
But me, Dan, Nancy, and Julie are 3/4 of the year, it's 3/4 of the season at least,
right.
in the same room together. And that was always Jim Brooks. James L. Brooks decided, I think because his background was movies and television, and particularly sitcom, was why would you do it any differently? It's a conversation. Why the fuck would you do it in a vacuum? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
So even though it's unusual for animation, when we, for instance, did the crossover with Family Guy,
right.
I did my lines all by myself. We went to the Family Guy recording booth, and it was just me, and all my stuff was with Meg, and I never saw Meg.
Right.
So it's not usual, but my point is that the way you say a line is obviously going to inform the way I answer,
sure,
the way I
course.
respond.
Yeah.
So I prefer it.
Yeah.
But I think actually I've heard Hank say he doesn't prefer it. Even if he lived in town, he likes his energy comes from being able to riff on something on his own time. He sort of is a self-generated little Tasmanian devil of brilliance.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's super extraordinary.
He is.
Yeah. And the season 30 premiere party is coming up. So the season 30 premiere, I'm assuming, will be early October?
No, it's at the end of September.
End of September.
A week before the season begins on September 30th.
And how much
Starts
of it
to air.
have you recorded?
We have just recorded episode 14. So we'll go through till about the first week of December,
Right.
recording episodes. Then we have our hiatus from December to early March, and then we start again. So most television shows, half-hour shows, take their break in the summer from about May to August.
Right.
But because of the animation, it takes 8 months to animate one episode, our season is flip-flopped so that we can have all that lead time to have something ready by September.
Right.
Yeah.
And the writers never stop.
Never stop. And we actually, as actors, I do ADR, which is
Right.
pickups and rewrites for stuff that they see over the course of animation they don't like, it doesn't work, all throughout the year.
Right.
So, but it's not as ADR scheduling is a great deal looser than I expect you to be at the table. It's your job, so fucking show up. Which I don't have a problem with.
Yeah,
you know,
of course. Well, listen, continued success with Small Town Dicks. I'm very excited for season 3, now available. However you do podcasts, folks, please if you have any interest whatsoever in true crime, and as told by detectives and very, very curious hosts with great insights and almost field reporting, in the sense that wherever these stories took place, there's a sense of that in each one of the
Thank you. Yes.
podcasts. Yeah.
We're really so pleased and proud of it. We, as you said, I mean, you were like, let's do this thing, and if you, I always say, if you proceed with passion and integrity, success will follow, and we did, and it has, and
great.
we're enormously grateful.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Very, very exciting. And happy anniversary on the 1 year and 2 seasons.
Thank you.
Sit there uncomfortably if you wouldn't mind while I wrap things up for the folks at home. Devin, our producer. There are 2 questions I forgot to get to, and this has become a tradition on the show. The first one is Ask Kevin. I feel like we kind of covered it. That's where the guest gets to ask me anything. I think we can blow past that one. So it's time for...
I have a question, actually.
Oh, boy.
I want to know, when you were growing up, when did you know you wanted to be in show business? And did you come from a family that encouraged that, or were they hoping that you were going to get a real job?
It started too early for there to be discussions of real job. I signed my first autograph when I was 6. Not because I should have, nor did I know how to write. I had to print my name.
Who got it?
So my 13-year-old...
I feel like this is a collector's item, and somebody could sell it on eBay and buy a house.
Well, there are probably 15 women who at the time were 13-year-old girls who were like myself and my 13-year-old cousin Terry Zucker, who had taken me to see the Dave Clark Five perform live at the Circle Star Theater in San Carlos, California. Sonny and Cher were the opening act with the bangs and the fur vest, just to give you an idea of how old of a story this is. So I was 6. She dragged me to the show because I'd memorized Dave Clark Five's first album and sang it around the house. And so while we stood at the side stage door waiting for the Dave Clark Five to come out to get autographs, there were stairs leading up to a little platform where the side stage door was. And after waiting for a half hour, 45 minutes, probably an hour, my 13-year-old then cousin, then 13-year-old, still cousin, Terry Zucker said, "Kevin, you know their songs. Get up there and sing one of their songs." And I don't think she finished the sentence before there was a little puff of smoke where I was standing, and then followed me up the stairs as I raced up and began singing "Catch Us If You Can," ooh. And so these poor 13-year-old girls came to get someone's autograph. They realized the Dave Clark Five were not coming out. They had their pens and pads waiting, and so they thrust them towards the 6-year-old, who then scrawled out in print his name. And so that was the birth of Hey, Look at Me. And then I'd say by 10 years old, I was obsessed with stand-up comedians on television, and then started.
And did you start to write your own stuff then?
No, I lip-synced comedy albums.
Yeah. Did that help you learn timing?
Of course, without realizing it.
Right.
I didn't even know I was lip-syncing. I didn't know that was a thing. I was just playing.
Right.
And I was caught standing in front of the stereo hi-fi, the 7-foot wide piece of furniture.
Yes.
Let's compare that to the iPhone.
I know.
And
Or the Nano.
Or the Nano, certainly. And so, so it was very early, and then it was encouraged because it was just a cute kid being silly and funny, and then class clown in high school, and then the seeds were sown, and my dad was kind of oblivious and thought, fine, whatever.
Right.
And my mom was crazy happy that this was happening.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
And were you an only child?
A brother 2 years older.
And
no show business anywhere near the family.
Really?
Prior.
Me either.
Or since.
Same.
Yeah.
Now, you said earlier that when you were 21, you were very much on the rise, and by the time you were 25, you'd reached pretty much the pinnacle of what you thought you would be locally in San Francisco.
Right.
That means you must have started when you were 16?
17, 18.
Because I would say, how do you get into clubs if you're underage? But
in
maybe
bars, they would let
more-
me in to perform during the band's break.
Right.
Yeah. In San Jose, California, where there were no comedy clubs at the time.
And people just ate it up with a spoon.
No, they were at the bar. The band had taken a break.
Yeah.
So this was a chance for the guys to buy a women drink and the women to have a drink bought for them, because that's the way things were, folks. In 1978 and or earlier. And then I said, I'll go on and I'll perform during the break and for free, just to get some stage time. So while the male and female counterparts were enjoying each other's company at the bar when the band took a break, there was a guy behind them on stage doing Columbo.
Oh, my God.
And they didn't care. So I think the first 111 shows I performed to the back of people's heads, and I killed.
And still,
I killed in silence.
You thought, this is my calling.
Oh, yeah. Because every now and then someone would turn around because they had heard something that interests them.
And they're like,
yeah.
Is
And
that
here we
guy
are all
talking?
these years later, and all you can do is hear me. But yeah, it was an undeniable calling. There was no turning back. And a lovely question. Thank you. And now it's time for Kevin's pop quiz between 5 and 15 points possible for each of the 3 questions.
Oh.
Once the final score is tabulated, it will be posted on our website along with the current standing of the top 100. Are you ready?
Wait, why
Nope, no waiting.
5 and 15? What's the variance?
Between 5 and 15 points?
Yeah.
That's decided by your answer.
Oh, my God.
Sure.
All right.
Question number 1. You'll understand immediately. by the
Okay.
way. Question number 1. Keith David or David Keith?
David Keith.
Correct. Question 2. Carl Weathers or the weather in Carlsbad?
Carl Weathers.
Correct. And the final question, Steve?
Steve McQueen.
Yes! 3 out of 3! That's a perfect score!
Thank you.
Congratulations!
I am Lisa Simpson.
As it turns out, you can do no wrong. And thank you for my lovely card/question in an envelope on your stationery.
Just want to know, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm going to be fine. I'm happier than I thought I would be. Let's just say that.
This is a win.
That's my answer.
Same.
Oh, good. Here's to us. And to Devin, our engineer today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Devin.
Devin, tremendous work. And all the folks here at the Earwolf Studios in Hollywood, California. That is our show for today. Until next time, and as always, get out of my face.